So first of all, I should go gadol for the shiva for coming on Mamish last moment. We told everyone on Sunday that the shir is going to be on. Shir is going to be this Thursday, but so thank you everyone for coming. It's first of all, and again thanks to, of course, to the Shiva for always making the effort and making the time to come. We're learning Hilchos Shabbos, and Hilchos Shabbos we've mentioned many times that it says that Shabbos is a time of Ashra Shechina. It's brought down in the Svarim. It's brought down in the Svarim that the base of Mikdash is also a makom of Ashra Shechina. So there are two things. Also, all the melachos in the Mishkan are learned, right? That we learn the malachos of Shabbos from the malachos that were done in the Mishkan, because one is a makom of Ashra Shechina, and one's a time of Ashra Shechina. But the Yerushalmi says there's another time of Ashra Shechina, and that is called Mekabel Pnei Rabo, Mekabel Pnei Shechina. So now, Baruch Hashem, we have the schus of having almost all three together. We're in Eretz Yisrael, we're in Yerushalayim, very close to the Makom HaMikdash. It's Erev Shabbos, it's a Thursday night, and we have the schus to be Mekabel Pnei Rabbeinu. So it's Mamish Chuta Mishulosh Lo B'mhera Yinatik. So it's really, we have a tremendous Karsato for the Shiva that the Shiva comes. One thing I always try to say something about the Shiva so we understand that we're in the presence of greatness. To speak about the Shiva's godless and Torah Yira would be like a little bit chutzpahdik. So I always try not to do that. It's like having a 5-year-old go to Einstein and say, "Oh, you're such a smart person." Right? So if I would speak about the Shiva's godless, it would be mamish the same thing. So I try to stay away from that. But just one idea I heard an amazing story really from Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. He said that his brother was once traveling in Iowa and he met a professor over there. And the professor noticed there was a chazusa muchiach alav. He saw that he was a Chabadsker. So this professor came to Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson's brother, and he told him, he said, you should know I was once had yichidus with a rebbe. So he said, okay, no, what did he say? Right, every Chabadsker who meets someone who had yichidus with a rebbe, so he asked him, what did he say? So he said, I went to the rebbe and I asked him, I said, I'm not an Orthodox person, but I have one question. What does the word rebbe mean? Very simple. What does it mean to a rebbe? The Rebbe looks at him and he says, a Rebbe means a good friend. So he saw the man was like, not so impressed. So the Rebbe told him, he says, were you expecting a different answer? So he said, yeah, it's a little bit anticlimactic, a good friend. So he says, so the Rebbe asked him, do you have a lot of friends? So he says, I think I have a lot of friends. So the Rebbe tells him, he says, maybe my definition of a friend and your definition of a friend is something else. So he says, what's your definition of a friend? That's what the Rebbe asked him. He says, my friend. He says, what do you mean? I have tons of friends. We go out when he has some simcha, so I go to his simcha. When it's time to go bowling on Motzi Shabbos, we go bowling on Motzi Shabbos. We hang out. They come over to my house. I go to them. We're friends. So the Rebbe tells him, he says that's acquaintances. So let me tell you what a friend is. A friend is someone that you're able to tell him whatever you want. You can mamish pour your heart out, and he won't look at you any different based on what you said. Friend is a person that after you spilled, Imamish told him the same thing. Like Imamish told him every tzara that you have or every avira that you did, the Rebbe doesn't look at you differently. Because that's what a Rebbe means and that's what a friend is. A real friend is someone who won't look at you differently. And growing up in the mechitza of the Yeshiva, my whole life, I was zocher to see a lot of people ask the Yeshiva a lot of different questions. And some of them were smart and some of them, to say the least, were not on that high level. But every single time, the Yeshiva makes everyone feels like that person is a human being, that person is a chashuv yid, and the person is very important. So, really, it's something that we can all learn from. And just, I'll end off with another story of just the effect that Smichas Chaver is having. Baruch Hashem, we're in 53 locations around the world, and there are, I would say, over 1,000 participants, probably 1,300 participants, and it's all b'schus the Yeshiva. And I just want to share a story that I heard last week from one of the Rebbeim. Rabbi Chaim Marcus called me, and he said, I want to tell you a story that happened in my community. It was, he said it was Friday night. He said Friday night we have like a tish that people come to different people's houses, and they have a tish. So he says we get to one person's house where it was scheduled to be in that place, and he said that person was he happened to be a ger who never he was Megayer many years ago, and he spoke about how hard it was for him. He was black. He was an African American. He said that he grew up. He was in jail like a whole bunch of times, and it was he found Yadus when he was 20. He's now I think in his 50s, and he said that so he basically shared his entire story of his life, how he grew up in a one-parent house and they didn't have any food and any money, and then he was able to find Yadus, and he was able to learn and to steig. And then at the end of giving his whole story for 20 minutes, he said, I want to tell you what I'm most proud about. And he had a towel that was covering something, and he took off the towel, and it was the certificate of the Smichas Chaver program that the Rebbe signs. And he said, my whole life I've been trying to make a kinyan in Torah. My whole life I was learning. My whole life I was trying. He says, the first time that I feel like, wow, I actually made a kinyan. In Torah. And then he turns to everyone that was sitting there and he said, you have to take the test to get this. You have to pass the test to get this. And he says, if I can do it, for sure anyone in this room can. He says, I started, he said, I passed, but everyone here has to definitely do it. So all of us are Sirei Torah to the Rosh Hashiva, really pushing us K'moshe Tzarich. Before we begin the shir, I just want to dedicate the shir. The shir is going to be Le'ilu Nishmas, our dear Chaver. We had one of the Smichas Chaver Magidi Shurim, unfortunately lost his son this week, Shmuel ben Harav Reuven Eitan. So we dedicated all the Torah learning this week in all the different locations to be Le'ilu Nishmas, his holy neshama. So the learning tonight will also be Le'ilu Nishmas. So Yashkua Gadol to Yeshiva, and we're very excited.
I apologize for coming late. There was some kind of traffic jam over here. We have a klal in the Gemara that appears in many places called the Tikkun Rabbanan, came there, I said Tikkun. And the Chachamim instituted Din Rabbanan, the building blocks of the Dinim Rabbanan have to be found in the Din HaTorah. What's the reason for this? So I think the reason probably is, like the Rambam seems to imply in Hagdama to his Pirush HaMishnayos. The Rambam says the Mishnayos contain the Torah Shabbat Peh, and Torah Shabbat Peh can be divided into 5 different parts, 5 different sections. It says one part of Torah Shabbat Peh, Halachas L'Moshe Sinai. Tefillin have to be flat, Tefillin have to be square. At then that there's no way to read it in between the lines in the Chumash. Another chelak of Torah Shabbat Peh, the Perushim HaMekubalim L'Moshe Sinai. We have traditions that the word Priyetzah, that means an esrog. But Ein Tachasayin today said was not to be taken literally. It means moment. Every language has certain expressions that just translate the word Ein Tachasayin. It doesn't mean that. It's an expression that has this meaning. We have traditions about what the Pirush HaMilus is in certain places in the Chumash. And then you have the bulk of the Torah Shabbat Peh is really the halachas that are derived by reading in between the lines. The Yud Gimel Midah shall turn the Dreshes Mem. And then the Rambam, those are 3 parts of Torah Shabbat Peh. Then he says another section 4, section 5 are the Gzeres de Rabbanon and the Takanas de Rabbanon. So the Rambam sounds very much that he thinks that all the Dinim de Rabbanon, although the Chovos HaGavra, the obligation to observe these Dinim de Rabbanon, let's say to read the Megillah on Purim, to give Shalach Manas and to have Sudas Purim, all of these obligations are only with the Rabbanon, but the Dinim of Mikra Megillah blend in to be an integral part of the Torah Shabbat Peh and Torah. If the Rambam would have thought that it's only with the Rabbanon, so it's not really part of the Torah Shabbat Peh. That's what Rav Soloveitchik always used to say. He never quoted this Pirush HaMishnayos. He gave shir on brachas. He had a shir for Balabatim in Manhattan for many years. He gave shir on brachas for over 10 years. And after making a siyum, I remember I came the last couple of years. I was in college the whole time. So when I finished college, then I had evenings were free to learn other things. So I went the last few years. I remember when they had the siyum. So it was a beautiful function. And he said that someone raised the question, maybe it would have made more sense instead of learning brachas, that 90% of brachas are dinim d'Rabbanan, only 10% are dinim d'Oraisa. It was really, on the level of d'Oraisa, it was 90% bittul Torah. Maybe they should have learned the Zvachim, that it's 90% dinim d'Oraisa and 10% dinim d'Rabbanan, so it would have been 90% Talmud Torah d'Oraisa. So he said, they attribute that point to Rav Soloveitchik. He said like that when you learn Dinim D'Rabbanan, it's Bittul Torah D'Oraisa, it's only Talmud Torah D'Rabbanan. That's quoted in his name. So Rav Schachter didn't attribute it to anybody, he just said someone raised the issue. He said he doesn't think that the argument is valid. He thinks that when you learn the Dinim D'Rabbanan, it's a mitzvah Talmud Torah D'Oraisa. You go to all the Dinim D'Rabbanan, blend in to become an integral part of the Torah Shabbat Mid'Oraisa, even though the obligation to observe the D'Rabbanan is only Mid'Rabbanan, Chavis HaGab is only D'Rabbanan, but it's a Chefza Shel Torah on the level of the D'Oraisa. How can you have such a thing, that it's a Chefza Shel Torah on the level of the D'Oraisa, and the Chavis HaGab to observe it is only Mid'Rabbanan? So he says you have a bigger Chiddush. The Gemara says when you learn the Shitas Beishamai, the Gemara says, what does it mean? When you learn Beishamai Shita, you become the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. The Gemara says we absolutely do not pass like Beishamai. Gemara said, "B'shamay b'makam misil eina mishnah." You don't even consider as safek kolberu that the din should be like B'shamay. You're not makel on all the b'chutzlors or avelus or anything. So you see, there's no chavis agab at all, and still B'shamay shita, since they're based on Yud Gimel Midrash Torah Nedrash, is a chelik of Torah Shabbat. So he says certainly more so the din of the Rabbanon, that and that's what it sounds like in Rambam, the Hagdama to the Pirush HaMishnayos. So the Rav Schachter pointed out that the Gemara has beferish in Masechah Shabbos that the definition of what's muktzah is kein daraisa tikkun. We have a din daraisa that there are 4 categories of things that are mekabel tumah. Od mekel mochlam mashkin. So those things have significance. If you have a piece of junk, that's not mekabel tumah. A piece of garbage, a piece of junk is not mekabel tumah. Only 4 categories of things are od mekel mochlam mashkin. So the Chachamim prohibited. The Gemara says in Shabbos and the Beitzah, what the Rebbe quotes from the Gemara, that the Chachamim prohibited tiltal muktzah, gzera shema yotzi. We're afraid that a person will carry, and the Rishus HaRabim said they made a gzera, you're not even allowed to handle something that's muktzah. You don't need it, so you're not allowed to handle it. So things that have chashivas, people are going to use, people are going to need it. Adam Mekelim Ochel Mashkim, the 4 categories of things that have chashivas, that would be too difficult if they're going to prohibit handling those 4 things. So the Yisra Muktza was really instituted on all the things that are not within these 4 categories. So the more points out that the dinim, even though all the dinim of Muktza are patterned after the dinim deraisa of Kabbalah's Tumah, but it's not 100% the same. Take for example, Ochel Mamashkim is Makabal Tumah only if it's Michael Adam. It's Michael Behem, it's not Makabal Tumah. But the Gemara has a discussion. The Gemara says Michael Behem is not Muktza. When you feed hay to the I don't even know what animals eat hay. There are animals that eat hay. Whatever is Michael Behema, the Gemara has a debate. The Gemara said, no, it's not Muktza. You're allowed to feed the animals Michael Behema. Well, let's say Adam, the only ones who are Makabal Tumah are Yisraelim. Nochrim are not Makabal Tumah. But Nochrim is not Muktza. So the definition of which Adam is not the same. Or Kalim. There are 3 types of Kalim. The Gemara has Klei Galolim, Klei Adama, and Klei Avonim are not Makabal Tumah. But whatever is a kli is not considered muktzah. We don't go into all the details. And the Gemara discusses if you have a needle and it doesn't have the hole in the needle, it's not mekabel tumah, but it's not muktzah either. The Gemara discusses to what extent is it's patterned after the dinim of Kabbalah, but it's not exactly identical. This idea that called the Tikkun Rabbanan came there, I said Tikkun Rabbanan Asman has a very beautiful sefer on Yavamis. That's called Kovitz Ha'oris, and all the yeshivas that use his sefer. So he has one of the essays, a collection of different essays. So one essay he deals with this issue called the Tikkun Rabbanan Kein Deraisa Tikkun. He points out that the Gemara will sometimes learn out a din deraisa. If the Amoraim weren't sure, they'll say, since there's a din derabanan like this, it must have been a din deraisa that it's patterned after. So the Gemara will prove what was it din deraisa from the fact that the Chacham made a din derabanan like this. Quotes Hachilman, the end of the 2nd parak in Baba Basra, and he shows other Gemaras also like that. To that extent, he say, called the Tikkun Rabbanan Kein Deraisa Tikkun. You can reconstruct what the din deraisa was based on dinim derabanan sometimes, because we assume all the dinim derabanan have to be patterned after some dinim deraisa. I didn't realize it when I put out a sefer many years ago called Eretz HaTzvi. So I didn't realize it. One of the adults who participates in Agim Shurim for Balabatim, also in New York. So one of the adults, Asmicha from Yeshiva, used to be a professor of mathematics. He lives in Yerushalayim now, he's retired here. So he read through the whole sefer, and he told me the recurrent theme of my sefer was this: called the Tikkan Bankein. I said, I myself didn't realize. I quoted a lot from Rav Soloveitchik in different areas of halacha where he showed more so than other Rabbanim in our generation. He showed many times what's the Kein Deraisa Tikkun. I'll just say a few words about Muktza, and then we'll open the floor for discussion. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva in one of the later volumes when he was already not well. So those tshuvas are the old tshuvas that he wrote were long, and he would give proofs to everything that he said. And the tshuvas that he wrote in the later years, a lot of times they're very bekitzer, without any ma'amikam. So somebody asked him, if you have a painting hanging on the wall, is that considered muktzah? So he writes just briefly, why in the world should it be muktzah? He doesn't see what the shaila is. But truth of the matter is that Magen Avraham says like that. Magen Avraham says, if you have pictures on the wall, photographs, or you have paintings on the wall, so if your practice is you take it down every so often, show it to someone, you hang it back up on the wall. So then he says, you handle it, so it's a kli. But he says, if something hangs, a painting hangs on the wall, you never take it down, unless you have to put up new wallpaper, or you have to paint the wall or something, or if something falls down. But you normally don't take it down. So that's a davar she'ein bo hishtamshus. Hishtamshus means that not that I look at it. Let's say you have a candle. I use the light that comes out from the candle on Shabbos, but I don't use the actual flame itself. You don't handle the flame itself on Shabbos. So the Gemara says that the flame is muktzah, and the candle, if you have a wick, so the flame on the wick is muktzah because you can't light another candle from it on Shabbos. On Yom Tov, the flame is not muktzah because you're permitted to handle the flame, even to light another candle from it. But on Shabbos, the flame is muktzah, so therefore the oil below it and the cup and the candlestick, everything has the status of a basis. Davar asur is the flame. The flame on Yom Tov is not muktzah. The flame is only muktzah on Shabbos because it doesn't have hishtamshus. So that's what the Magen Avraham says. If you have a painting that you basically don't take down from the wall, that's considered davar she'ein bo hishtamshus, and that would be considered muktzah. The Gemara has a klal. The Gemara said maybe it's a machlekes of Shimon and Rav Yehuda, and we make a compromise in the psak here that whatever was muktzah ben hashmashas, migeris katzoyle ben hashmashas, is katzoyle kuli yoyma. Then the Gemara has a klal in the end of Beitza. It's only if it was muktzah ben hashmashas. Something became muktzah in the middle of Shabbos, let's say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was muktzah for an hour, and then somehow the sibas ha'haktzah disappears. The reason why it's muktzah goes away. You don't say migeris katzoyle miktzas menayam is katzoyle sof hayam. That's what the Gemara uses the expression ein muktzah l'chatzi Shabbos. If something is muktzah, people misunderstand. People that don't learn the Gemara hear an expression, so they misunderstand. People think that whatever was not muktzah at the beginning of Shabbos can become muktzah in the middle of Shabbos. So let's say you have a glass bottle, and it smashes, and you have tiny little pieces of glass all over the place. That's mamish junk. A broken kli is junk. Can't use it for anything. So the Gemara said b'ferish that it's muktzah. So a lot of balabatim think, no, ain't muktzah l'chaz Shabbos. Can't be that it's muktzah part of Shabbos. Muktzah, let's say the garbage. You eat the meals and you have leftover stuff and you throw it out in the garbage. You have a bag full of garbage. Everything in the garbage bag is muktzah because it's junk. And there is no such klal, ein muktzah l'chatzi Shabbos. Ein muktzah l'chatzi Shabbos means if something was muktzah between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it was muktzah. But then you don't say migeris katzoy for an hour, is katzoy l'seifayim. That's only if it was migeris katzoy ben hashmashas. Tchilas HaShabbos, then it remains muktzah till the end of the day. And what is that based on? What is that based on? So Rav Soloveitchik, when he was younger in Europe, when he was a child, he was in a Hasidic village. He was born and brought up in Chaslavish. That was a Hasidic community. So at that time, in America, he didn't have the Avnei Nezer, I don't think. But in Europe, as a child, when he was growing up, he used to look a lot in the Avnei Nezer. And a lot of his shurim, quite a few of the shurim, surprisingly, word for word from the Avnei Nezer, just he would be happy to say B'Shem Mama. He just forgot where he saw it. A lot of times he said things word for word from the Ktsais and from the Nesimis, which he saw in the Ktsais, but he hadn't looked it up, so he forgot where he saw it. So a lot of things he said from the Avnei Nezer. So this was a big machlokes. Avnei Nezer was the Sochachover Rebbe. So a contemporary of his was the Chechanover Rebbe. Chechanover Rebbe put out a Siddur Tzelusa Davrom, I think, supposed to be a very good Siddur. My father liked it very much. He told me it's a Lomdish. It's big Talmud Chacham. So there was a big machlokes between these two Rebbes. the Schachter Rebbe and Shechanov Rebbe, what is the oiser on the level of the Reisa? Forget about Muktza de Rabban. What is the oiser of Melecha Shabbos? So the Shechanov Rebbe said what I would have said. Every minute of Shabbos, every second of Shabbos has Kedushas Hayom, and the Kedushas Hayom Maasa is b'Malacha. And Schachter Rebbe said not so. Schachter Rebbe said the Tchilas Hayom, the Bein Hashmashos of Tchilas Hayom, is the oiser on the level of the Reisa for Shabbos. And the din in Muktza, Miglis Katzah the Bein Hashmashos, it's Katzah l'Kul Yoma, is called the Tikkun Rabbanan Kain, the Reisa Tikkun. It's pattern after that din the Reisa. And there's a din, it's not only Miglis Katzah, it's not only whatever was Muktza the Tchilas Hayom. The Klal works in the opposite direction also. It's a Gemara in the end of Shabbos. Whatever was not Muktza in the beginning of the day cannot become Muktza in the middle of Shabbos. I gave a case before. If you have a bottle and it smashes, it breaks into tiny little smithereens and it's a piece of junk, then it's Muktza. What if a person has, let's say, a suit, a nice suit that is, it's a kelim, other kelim, ochel, and mashkim are the four categories of things that are not Muktza. A person has a suit and he throws it in the garbage, on Shabbos is going to throw it out. So that's botla daite, so that's called it doesn't become ois kli just because he throws it in the garbage. It's still makabel tumah, it's still a beged, it's still a kli. So that doesn't become Muktza. Because it's not, just because he threw it out doesn't make it ois kli. What if he has a beged that's a borderline? As a beged that a rich, it's torn over here and over here, it's falling apart, and a wealthy person would throw it in the garbage. But a poor man would save it, a poor man would use it. So the Gemara has such a thing. Let's say, Ashmata, that's dollar al dollar tvachim. So a rich man will throw it in the garbage, and a poor man will save it, he'll use it for some purpose or another. So the Gemara says, if it's in the home of a wealthy person, it's considered Muktza. Whenever it's a borderline food or a borderline kli, let's say the Gemara says you put up Zaysim Banovim, you put up olives or you put up grapes on the rooftop that it should dry out and become raisins or dried out fruits. So when it's when it's raw, people will eat it. When it's fully dried out, people will enjoy it. And it's in the in between stage. The Gemara says that's called Zaysim Banovim. Some people will eat it, and some people it's borderline food. Some people don't like it. Because neither here nor there. It's not a fresh fruit and it's not fully dried out yet. So the Gemara says that depends on the bailim. If the bailim feels that it's edible the way it is, then it's not muktzah. The bailim, as far as the bailim is concerned, let's say if I'm a farmer and I'm offering truma and I'm not a kohen, I'm not allowed to eat the truma. That doesn't make the truma muktzah. Just because in my home I can't eat it, I'll give it to the kohen will eat it. That's not muktzah. But if you have food, I hold it's not food. As far as I'm concerned, this is not edible. It doesn't taste good at all. Other people will enjoy it. People have a different taste. So that, if it's a borderline food, some people don't like whatever spinach, but nothing wrong with it. They don't like it. It's a question of taste. But here it's a question, there's something funny about the food. It's half dried out and half raw. So it's neither here nor there. Or if you have a beggar that's all torn, and some people will consider it still useful, other people will not. So then the Gemara says it depends on that person. So then the Gemara says, if you have in the beginning of Shabbos, he was a poor man, and he has this beged, which, as far as he's concerned, has the status of a beged. Then in the middle of Shabbos, he finds out that he just won the Irish sweepstakes, and takes all the shmatas and throws them in the garbage. And if it would have been before Shabbos, he would know he's a wealthy man. It would be Muktza. But then the Gemara has, since B'tchilas Hayom, Shabbos Hol V'Yishtari, since in the beginning of Shabbos it was not Muktza, and nothing changed in the beged. If I had the bottle and it smashes to tiny little pieces, it's a different thing now. So now it is Muktza, but I have the exact same beged or the exact same Michael, nothing changed. I changed. I became a multi-millionaire in the middle of the day, so now I throw out all the old stuff. So the Gemara has the klal in the other direction also. Migda lo yiskatzai the be'er shmashis, lo yiskatzai l'sharayam. So the Adnan Yezer held that was called the Tikkun Rabbanan Kain Deraisa Tikkun. The laws of Muktza were patterned after the Din Deraisa of Shabbos, that the Oyser of Shabbos is Tchilas Hayom of Shabbos. Rav Soloveitchik always assumed like that. He never said over, he didn't mention that he saw it in Adnan Yezer. He didn't mention that there's anyone who disagreed. But if you look in the Rosh, in the end of Maseches Moed Katan, the last parak Moed Katan, has all the laws of Avelus. So there's a discussion there. There is a machlokes in the days of the Gaonim. There's a din of chinuch on young children before bar mitzvah. So there's a din. They have to observe all the mitzvahs. Midrabanan mitam chinuch. There are a few exceptions to the rule. So fasting on Yom Kippur, the Mishnah says they do have to fast. Tana before bar mitzvah have to fast. The last 2 years they have to fast the whole day, and 2 years before 2 years they have to fast half a day. If they're up to it, if they're healthy enough. But there clearly is a din of chinuch on fasting on Kippur. Fasting on Tisha B'Av on the other Tanesim, there's no chinuch. Rabbi Goldwicht's father, Rameir Goldwicht, the American branch of the family, Rameir, used to say over a line from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Shlomo Zalman used to say, there are 3 dinim that depend on 3 times, and all 3 are not true. All 3 dinim are not true. So there's one din that people say that the last 3 tanesim before the child becomes bar mitzvah, the kid has to fast. So he said it's not true. Only Yom Kippur. Tisha B'Av doesn't have to, even going to be bar mitzvah tomorrow. His bar mitzvah is the day after Tisha B'Av. And even there's a shaila, the kid is bar mitzvah on Sunday, Yudov, and Tisha B'Av falls out on Shabbos, and nobody's fasting on Shabbos. Everybody's fasting on Sunday. It's an itre. So the Alenez has a whole discussion. Maybe the kid does not have to fast, even though he's a bar mitzvah, because it's a tashlumin for yesterday. The chiyuv to fast was chal on Shabbos. On Shabbos the kid was not yet bar mitzvah. So there's no chinuch on fasting. On Tisha B'Av, or B'Tevet, some Gedah, maybe Tainus Esther. Yes, Tainus Esther is a Tainus Shel Simcha. So there's no chinuch on fasting. He said the 3 dinim that depend on 3 times and all 3 are not true. That's one. And he said the other din, Mishnah Berurah says, that when you take a Sefer Torah to the base of Oven, you don't have an Aron Kodesh. So if you're laying 3 times, then it's okay. So Mishnah Berurah says, it's not true. There is no such thing. When you take the Sefer Torah to the base of Oven, you have to have an Aron Kodesh. That's by the Cheved Kaddish. You should have a little Sefer Torah with a little Aron Kodesh that's portable. Then he said the third din that people invented was you go out of the bath and you have to wash your hands 3 times. He said that's not true. Sometimes you have to wash more than 3 times. Sometimes you have to wash less than 3 times. You have to wash till your hands are clean. No such thing as 3 times. Ruach, when you wake up in the morning, ruach, that says you have to have 3 times. That's a Zohar, I think. But he said these are the 3 dinim that depend on 3 times. They're all not true. So one of the dinim where there's no chinuch for ktanim is avelus. The big machlokes in the days of the Gaonim, and the psak and Shulchan Aruch, the psak HaMekubal is that when a relative dies, if the child is not yet bar mitzvah, he doesn't have to observe avelus. If he wants to, let him go to cheder, let him go learn in the yeshiva. If he's upset that his sibling died or a parent died, okay, so you let him stay home and cry. But if he didn't, there's no din of chinuch on avelus. Whatever the explanation is, they give different explanations why. So the shaila is, what if a relative died and the child was a katan, and it becomes bar mitzvah before the 30 days? So there's a din of shmor kroiv and shmor achoika. If I didn't hear about the death of a relative till 30 days went by, my father passed away a long time ago, so let's say if they wouldn't tell me till 30 days after the Misa, different opinion, he passed 30 days after the Misa, so then you only observe Avelus Yom Echad, and you say Mitzvah Kikula, and you only observe Avelus Shachas. So that's called Shmor Rechoika. If I find out after 30 days, I find out within 30 days, I find out on the 29th day, so I have to observe the whole Shiva Shloshim and everything. But if you find out after 30 days of Shmor Rechoika, you don't have to. You only have to observe 1 day Yom Echad. Shmor Rechoika is Yom Echad, and the Yom Echad you chisel down to Shachas based on Mitzvah Yom Kikula. So the Rosh in the end of my cotton quotes his rebbe, the Maharam Rutenberg, who came up with the Chiddush. What if the child was bar mitzvah when the relative died, and then the child was a katan. The child was a katan when the relative died, and it becomes bar mitzvah before the 30 days are up. So we should consider it like Shmor Kroiva. He found out about the death of her. Didn't count what he found out before. Now he's bar mitzvah. Now he finds out about the death of the relative. So he has to observe Avela Shiva Ushloshim. And the Rosh quotes this from the Man Rutenberg, and he disagrees. And he explains his Rebbe brought a raya, and he argues with the raya. And the Rosh adds on an interesting line. He says, it's not fair that I disagree with the Rebbe after the Rebbe passed away. It's like picking a fight with a lion. While the lion is alive, he'll eat me up. He'll devour me alive. I pick the fight after the lion is dead. Of course I'm going to win the fight. So he says, even it's not fair to fight with a lion. I'm disagreeing with the Rebbe. The Rebbe died. The Rebbe would be alive. He would rip me to pieces. But he says it's Torah, and I don't understand the Rebbe's right. So the Maharam Rutmer brings a right from the following Gemara. There's a Gemara in Yevamis that says, if a child becomes bar mitzvah at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Shabbos, how is that possible? There's another story. But the Gemara has a case, a child boy or girl becomes bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, in the middle of Shabbos at 2 o'clock. So at the beginning of Shabbos, he only had to observe midirabbanan. And if he would be Mechal Shabbos, he wouldn't bring a korban chatos. Chatos not bob ben ed v'adov. He can't have a chatos midirabbanan. So the question is, the end of Shabbos, after the child becomes bas mitzvah, bar mitzvah, in the middle of Shabbos, is he obligated to observe the remainder of Shabbos ben Torah midirabbanan? So he proves from the Gemara, it's a famous Gemara, the child is obligated to observe the last part of Shabbos ben Torah. So the Maharam Rutenberg asks, but why? But he wasn't bar mitzvah when Shabbos entered, so he shouldn't be obligated even to observe the last part of Shabbos. So you see that even though he wasn't bar mitzvah when Shabbos entered, the Ben Hashmoshes can be mechayiv him for lachazman. So to over here, even though the child was not bar mitzvah at the time that they buried the relative, the stimus hagvelo, the Gemar hakvur is mechayiv and avelus. Even though the child was not a bar mitzvah at that time stimus hagvelo, the kvur is mechayiv for lachazman. That's what the Maharam Rutmek says. So the Rosh says, I don't understand what's the tushtel. By Shabbos, every minute of Shabbos has kedusha sayayim. So when the child becomes bar mitzvah 2 o'clock, every minute after 2 o'clock is mechayiv him to observe Shabbos. Where did the Maharam Rutmer get this bug in his head that the mechayiv of Shabbos is a tchilas hayom? And he brought a right from the Gemara that even though the child was a cotton at the moment of Ben Hashmoshes, tchilas knisas on Shabbos, he's mechayiv to observe the end of Shabbos. And the same here by the kvur. The kvur is mechayiv and avelus. So even though the child was a cotton then, the kvur is mechayiv alachazman. What's the whole sushta? So that's beferish. There was a great Gaon who was killed by the Nazis. He was known as the Kozhiklover Gaon. He was a Roman Kozhiklover before the First World War. Then the First World War, his whole Rabbanus, the old city I think was destroyed. So he was invited where Rav Meir Shapira founded the Lublini Yeshiva. So he was invited to be. I think the whole yeshiva only lasted less than a year. They were raising money forever for the yeshiva. Then they opened the yeshiva in 1938, something like that. Then the Nazis destroyed the whole yeshiva in 1939. They chased everybody else. The ganze yeshiva only lasted for a year. The whole of Blina yeshiva, unfortunately. So Rav Meir Shapira invited him to be to give the highest share in the yeshiva. So the Kozhik Glover writes that this machlekes between the Schachter Rebbe and the Chechanov Rebbe is a machlekes between the Rosh and the Maharam Rutenberg. What's the mechayiv of observing Shabbos? Is it the Chechanov Rebbe held like the Rosh that every moment of Shabbos has kedushas hayom, and every moment is mechayiv and isam halacha, and the Schachter Rebbe held like the Maharam Rutenberg that it's the tchilas hayom of Shabbos that's the Yosef. And what's an afkamina ledina? So he gives an interesting afkamina. He says, if it's Friday afternoon, you're right near the dateline. Let's say it's Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then you cross over, you go west, you run a boat. You cross over to the west. It becomes Shabbos afternoon, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You never experienced the Ben Hashmoshes of Tchilas Hayom. It became Shabbos afternoon, 2 o'clock, but you never experienced the Ben Hashmoshes. Are you mechuyev min haTorah to observe the rest of Shabbos or not? So he thinks midirabbanan you have to observe the rest of Shabbos, but he thinks that it should depend on this machlekes between the Chechanov Rebbe and the Schachter Rebbe. So this Rav Schachter always assumed. He assumed in all the shurim that like the Schachter Rebbe, like the Maharam Rutenberg, that the mechayiv of Shabbos on the level of the Reise is experiencing the Ben Hashmoshes of Tchilas Hayom, and the fact that in Muktza, called the Tikkun Rabbanan came the Reise Tikkun, the fact that in Muktza everything depends on Ben Hashmoshes, both l'chumra and l'kula. Biggest katsoy is l'chumra, and whatever was not muktzah Ben Hashmoshes does become muktzah in the middle of Shabbos if nothing changed on the object. That's all came the Reise Tikkun. That's everything came the Reise Tikkun. And there is a discussion in Hilchas Muktza. The Gemara has a whole discussion. When you have Shabbos next to Yom Tov, do you say kedusha achas? There's one kedusha sayam that lasts for 48 hours. Or do you say, no, the first day has Kedusha Tzayah for 24 hours, Second day has a kedusha sayam for 24 hours. So it's a machlekes ataraim and the Mishnayos in Masechus Eruvin. Can you make a separate Erev Tchumen for the first day, separate Erev Tchumen for the second day, or there has to be this? It's one long kedusha sayam. You can't have two different Tchumen for the first day for the second day. So it's a machlekes on the level of deraisa and on the level of drabanan, if dinim derabanan, if dinim deraisa. So why we happen to pass on shtei kedushas? Shabbos next to Yom Tov, a separate kedusha. Why did anybody in his right mind ever think that it should be kedusha achas? So Rav Schachter explained. There's a Rambam. The Rambam writes Yeroi Li, the last page in Hilchos Eruvin. He writes Yeroi Li. If you have Yom Kippur next to Shabbos, everybody agrees that that's kedusha achas because the malachas are the same. The whole machlekes hataraim is only if you had Yom Tov next to Shabbos. Because Yom Tov you have a heterach on the Efshin Shabbos, you know. But that's a machlekes, but the kedusha achas shtei kedusha. There we pass on that as shtei kedushas. But if you have Kippur next to Shabbos, where the two Yisurim malacha are identical, then everybody agrees that it's kedusha achas. Why? Why should it be kedusha achas? Why do the Tanoim? Why do you start off with the premise? Whenever you have 2 days next to each other, both Yom and Mikudoshim, you start off with the premise that it really should be kedusha achas. But if you can't, you can't. If you have a heterach on Nefesh, Shabbos doesn't. If you can't say, why do they say like that? So he explained the premise is because the Oyser b'Malacha is the Ben Hashmashas of Tchila Shabbos. And then you have to have the Sof Shabbos as a matir. But if right after Shabbos is going to come Yom Kippur, is going to come Yom Tov, so why should you say that you have a matir, Sof Shabbos is matir, and Tchila Yom Tov is another Oyser? Say that Ben Hashmashas of the first day is an Oyser for both days. It's Oyser, and there's no matir of Sof Shabbos. So that's what it means. Kedusha. Rashi has the lashon Yom Harichta. The Gemara doesn't have. The Gemara calls it Kedusha Achas. Rashi calls it Yom Harichta. Why is it called Yom Harichta? So Rav Schachter explained. What's the separation between one day and the other? Separation is the Ben Hashmashas. Is the end of the first day. First day is over. The second day begins. So if you say the Oyser, if the Ben Hashmashas of the first day is an Oyser, and Ben Hashmashas of the second day doesn't accomplish anything, there was no Ben Hashmashas. So that's probably called Yom Harichta. The separation line between one day and the next is the fact they have a Ben Hashmashas. In Metzias there was a Ben Hashmashas, but Al Pidin Halacha doesn't recognize the Ben Hashmashas. It's not that the Ben Hashmashas of Sof Shabbos is a matir, and the Ben Hashmashas of Tchilas Yom Tov is an Oyser. Just dispense with the Ben Hashmashas. The Oyser is the Ben Hashmashas of the first day, and it lasts for both days if you can say it. So Shabbos next to Yom Kippur. How can we say like that? It's Yom Harichta Kedusha Achas Ben Hashmashas. The first day is an Oyser, and there is no matir after Shabbos because it's going to come. Yom Kippur is going to be an Oyser again. So this was the brief introduction again. Okay, now we'll open the floor for discussions and Hilchos whatever, Hilchos Muktza, whatever you're learning. Okay.
So Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of groups here. From some from Efrat, some from Beit Shemesh, some from. Is anyone from Ra'anana? Anyone from Ra'anana came in? No, we got questions from Ra'anana.
I have 3 daughters live in Eretz. 1 daughter lives in Ra'anana. Okay.
So most of the
nobody from Chispin. I have 1 daughter in Chispin. Sorry.
So most of the questions are going to be in Muktza, but some also from Bishul, and then a few in Ashkafa also. We'll see through how many we can get through. Regarding flame, so the Shiva just mentioned that, as it's mentioned in the Gemara, that the flame is what's Muktza and everything underneath is a basis. So we saw different Shitas in Achron, and what exactly is the Hagdara of the flame being Muktza? Why in Achron? Why should the flame be Muktza? What's the Rishiva's opinion of why a flame is Muktza, and how does that apply to flashlights, to LED lights? Are those considered kelim? Are those not considered kelim? And then the Maisa, would you be allowed to carry all these different devices?
I said before, my impression was that the flame is not Muktza on Yom Tov. It's only Muktza on Shabbos. Why is that so? So I thought based on the Magen Ram, I think there are Gemaras like the Magen Ram. A thing that has a shtamshus means I handle it. If I have an electric light and I use the light that comes out, that's not called the shtamshus. I'm using the light, but I'm not using the flame. I thought using the flame means on Yom Tov you can light another candle from that candle. So the first flame has a hishtamshus and the gufat dover. But on Shabbos, since you're not allowed to, so it's like kol malachta liyisa. You're not allowed to use the flame. So something that has no hishtamshus at all is muktzah mamish. That's on the assumption. The Ramah and Shulchan Aruch quotes a Rabbeinu Tam If you have a klisha malachta le'isa, you have a screwdriver, you have a hammer, or a pen or a pencil, that's not muktzah. That's a klisha malachta le'isa. So klisha malachta le'isa, you're not allowed to move, you're not allowed to handle, unless it's all good for the self-requirement. What if you have a klisha kol malachta le'isa? The only time you ever use it is to use it from malach. Otherwise, you never handle the thing at all. That's a muktzah machmas chisaron kis. When you say muktzah machmas chisaron kis, the main ishtamshus is to use it from malach, and because it's a precision instrument and it's expensive, and you're afraid that it's going to break, and people are going to use it for the purposes. So the makbid, no one should handle it for any other use except for the main use, and the main use is a malach you're not allowed to do. So that's a klisha kol malach d'liyisa. So kol malach d'liyisa, that's muktzah mamish. That's Rav Schachter was working on that assumption. There's a problem in the Ramah in Hilchas Muktza. The Ramah writes this Rabbeinu Tam, a klisha kol malach d'liyisa is muktzah. That's how he starts off. Then he says, but to move it itself, gufas is mutter. So he just backed out from what he said. So that's what the Mefarshim say. The Ramah doesn't read straight. First he says the kol malach d'liyisa is muktzah. Then he says mutter l'tatla itself, gufas he said it's not muktzah. So Rav Schachter said that his family tradition was that you hold like that, Rabbeinu Tam. He said he remembers, he really quoted from his uncle, Rav Velvel, and he quoted a lot of things from his father, from his grandfather, Rav Chaim, his other grandfather, but he really quoted from Rav Velvel. He used to say, I heard this from my father, Kaidam Matan Torah, before Rav Velvel said it. He heard the Kaidam Matan Torah. Because those who learn by Rav Velvel think that Einoid Malvadoid, there's only Rav Velvel counts. No, he used to say, Kaidam Matan Torah, he heard from his father. So he said in the name of Rav Velvel, it says in Shulchan Aruch that tefillin on Shabbos is klisha malachta leheter. That if you want to, you're allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos. You're not allowed to, but you're allowed to. So the Taz writes on that in Hilchas Muktza, but according to what the Mechaber wrote in Hilchas Tefillin, that the Zohar says that it's forbidden to wear tefillin on Shabbos, then you should really treat the tefillin like a klisha malachta le'iser. You should only move it, let's all move it, let's all mekayim. So Rav Schachter said he remembers, he heard from his uncle. His uncle said, but once you're going to say like the Taz, that it's klisha malachta le'iser, if you're choshesh for the Zohar, that it's prohibited to wear tefillin on Shabbos, then it's kol malachta le'iser. The only time you wear tefillin is when you're mechuyev to. You don't use tefillin for any other hishtamshus other than to fulfill a mitzvah. And he said, at least kol malachta le'iser, we all like the Rabbeinu Tam, is muktzah mamish. That's how he understood the Gemara. So whenever something is kol malachta le'iser, then it's muktzah mamish. So I thought the flame was muktzah on Shabbos, not a Yom Tov, because we use the light and the warmth that come out from it, but we're not really using the kli. Using the kli means to handle it. Let's have a painting on the wall, and everybody looks at the paint, but I never take it down. Hangs on the wall forever. When we change the wallpaper, when you paint the wall, you take it down, but normally you don't take it down. So the Magen Avraham says that it's a thing that doesn't have any ishtamshus. So the flame on Shabbos is a davar she'ein bo ishtamshus klal. So I thought that's why it's muktzah.
That would apply to flashlights and
flashlights.
LED.
I don't know. You got to think about that one. The flashlight is attached to the thing, so the ishtamshus is that you walk with it. You walk with it. I don't know. Got to think about it.
Okay, Bishul Shaila. Some people...
Remember, Rav Schachter assumed that a bulb, they once asked them, there was an Aron Kodesh that had wooden doors, and they had electric bulbs on the doors. So the Shaila was whether the door becomes a basis of the Halachic. So there's a Gemara in Shabbos that if you have a candle on the back of the door, the Gemara says you're permitted to open and close the door, but you have to be careful. You're going to open the door quickly, you're going to blow out the candle. You shouldn't do kibud. And if by opening the door, a big wind is going to blow, so then it's going to be a psikresha blowing out the candle. Okay, you got to be careful. So Taisus asks, what about buses and davar ha'asur? Why doesn't the door become a buses? You shouldn't be allowed to handle the door at all. So Taisus gives one suggestion that we don't accept, that it's only shacheach. If he's miniach, if he leaves the candle on the door on purpose on Erev Shabbos, the door will become a basis l'davar ha'asur. So somehow, when Rav Schachter when they asked him this question about the Aron Kodesh with the bulbs on the door. So he was that's sheet and that's one that's quoted in Shulchan Aruch, that the door does not become a basas davar. So he was working with the other sheet that the door does become a basas davar. So he thought, they asked him, are you allowed to open the doors of the Aron Kodesh when the bulbs are on? So he says, Lo boy, you're not allowed to open the door when the bulbs are on, even when the bulbs are turned off. Also, you're not allowed to open the door because it's kol malach d'liyisser and shai. So that's questionable, because we really paskin like the Tysons at the door in Shulchan Aruch, except it opinions that the door does not become a basis because it's part of a whole building. You have a drawer in a table, so it does make the whole table. And you have some money in the drawer. So since the drawer is not the main part of the table, the main part is the rest of the table, so it does become a buzz. No buses on part of the bigger thing. I don't know. You have a good question there. What's the din by electric bulbs? I don't know. You got to think about it.
Some people like their meat rare. Some people like it medium rare. Some people different temperatures. Putting a meat, let's say the balabas likes the meat very rare or medium rare. So putting something like that, obviously in a permissible way, on the plata or on a blech on Shabbos, is that an issue of bishul? Is that an issue for someone who wouldn't like it? And obviously, when it gets put on, it's going to get right. If it's put on, a few hours before the meal, so some of it will cook. The same thing happens with cookies that have like cookie dough on the inside, or sometimes challah. Some people like their challah doughy. So if you heat it up on the plata, so over time it gets more cooked. So what would be the din with things like that?
Yeah, the din is when you cook food till the point of Michael Bender with soy. If some people really didn't like that, that's called bishul and yechai mishum elashon. So what if it already is Michael Bender soy from Erev Shabbos? You continue to cook it a little more on Shabbos up until the point of melushal kol tzarkoi. So the Rosh quotes a machlokes of Rishonim, and in Shulchan Aruch they say lahachmir, that we choshish that's a malacha deraisa. So let's say if you have chicken is cooking in a pot on top of the stove, you want to serve some of the chicken, so someone picks it up at both ends and they take off some of the chicken, they put it back on. Let's say a cholent. So the cholent is on Friday night, 1 o'clock at night. It's edible. Everything is edible. The potatoes, the flesh, everything is edible. But if you're going to leave it longer, it's going to get even better cooked. So that says in Shulchan Aruch, if it wasn't melushal called sark at night, then we choshish that there's an isa deraisa to put it back.
In this case, the balabas though prefers it in this state. Meaning for him, mevushal kol tzarko is rare. For him, mevushal kol tzarko is...
He doesn't enjoy it.
He enjoys it like that's how he actually likes it. It happens to be, let's say, someone else is borrowing that. He ran out of meat and he said, oh, can you take it? Meaning, there's a guy, let's say in my house, I only eat rare meat, or medium rare, right? The challah that my wife makes is very doughy, let's say. And then a person comes, knocks on my door, and he says, can I borrow that challah? Right, so for me, every second that it's on the plata, and it's getting cooked more, for me that's stomach virala. Or do we not, or is batal daita etzel kolada, that we consider that bishul even for me?
Yeah, even for you it's bishul. I don't think it's judged subjectively. If it's only kamechal ben dersoy, then you cook it more. So that's a machlokes of the Rosh, and we're machmer. The choshish that could be a malacha deraisa.
Smartphone that people have, is that something that's muktzah machos chesron kiss because they would never use it for anything else? That's the first half of the question. And the second half of the question is that if it is considered muktzah machos chesron kiss, does putting it in a case help? Meaning, once it's in a case, so then people will give it to a child to run away with, but if it's not, if it's out of the case, so they wouldn't. It's kaddish kadashim. They wouldn't allow anyone to touch it. They'll be very careful with it. They wouldn't use it to make a phone call to make sure that it doesn't break. So does wrapping something that's muktzah machos chesron kiss, would that be matter?
I don't think so. I think it would be muktzah machos chesron. I don't have a smartphone. I'm not sure what it is. When I come to Eretz, they gave me this cell phone that was going up. In New York, I don't use a cell phone either. I don't know how to use a cell phone. But I would think if you have a smartphone that you're makpid only to use it for making phone calls and picking up the phone call, I would think that it's kol malach d'liyisser. I would think that then it should be muktzah.
So if the alarm would go off on Shabbos, let's say the person forgot to turn the alarm off in the phone and it went off. No way to move it.
generally accepted opinion in Shulchan Aruch. The Chazon Ish has a different opinion, but the way the Mishnah Berurah quotes from the Gaon Rav, the way you usually learn the Gemara, till to muktzah only asa biyadayim. But if I'm going to move the muktzah like this, or with my feet, or let's say I'll knock it off, knock it on the floor, then I'll kick it with my feet. So in Shulchan Aruch, we usually assume that that's muktzah. Because the whole Isser of muktzah is Shem Yotzi, you're afraid of carrying. The only way to carry is to carry in your hands. So if you kick the muktzah with your feet, something. So if you can somehow turn off the thing with your elbow or something like that, the gufa, not the yadayim. If the only issue is one of muktzah.
Even by muktzah matas hasam kiss.
Yeah.
And what if, let's say, putting it under pillows would make the reception bars go down? Right, when it's turned on, so when, let's say now the phone rings, so the person kicks it off, and he kicks it down the stairs in his basement. He knows in the basement there's no reception, so he knows that when the phone goes down to the basement, they're on the phone. There are bars that indicate there's a screen, and the screen indicates how much reception there is. Right, so when the bars are
It's lit up.
It's like 4 little lines usually. So when a person goes inside, it goes down to 3. If a person goes in the subway, it goes down to 0. There's like nothing. It says no reception or no service. So would that be an issue to like kick it down the basement?
Because you
were causing the light. Yeah.
Probably would be an issue. Probably would be. It's ein tzricha legufa. It's kibui, but there is no pecham. By mechaber malacha deraisa, the way we pass on the Shulchan Aruch. Halacha deraisa is only if you have pecham left, if you have charcoal left, and you plan to use the charcoal for something. Let's say I'm going to dress up for Purim like a Schwarzer. So I need charcoal in order to smear on my face, or something like that. But the blow out a candle, you have pecham, you don't plan to use the pecham. So that's ein tzrich legufa. Here there is no pecham. So mechaben gacheles shel mateches, the Gemara says it's only the Rabbanon. It's not going to be on malacha deraisa, but still, it's a the Rabbanon. What are you going to say? It's a psikresha de la nichala. He doesn't care one way or the other. He wants to get it in the basement so it should stop making noise over here. He doesn't care one way or the other whether the thing goes off. Psikresha de la nichala yana the Rabbanon. There's more room to be makel. Tosis has an argument with the Aruch whether psikresha de la nichala is mutter or not. Some crackpot in New Jersey said falsely in the name of Rav Schachter, a fellow calls me up on the phone. I don't know who he is. Maybe he's here. Someone calls me up on the phone. He tells me he can't visit his children anymore. His children live in New Jersey, in a certain village in New Jersey. And the local rabbi has smicha from Yeshiva University. And he told about them, they don't have to unscrew the bulb in the refrigerator. Rabbi Soloveitchik said that psikresha de la nichala is mutter. So every time he goes to his children, they're opening up the refrigerator, closing, the light goes on, the light goes off. He thinks they're crazy. He can't take it. So he says he doesn't visit his children on Shabbos. Rabbi Soloveitchik never said that it's mutter. In Shulchan Aruch it says you have to try to avoid it. Rabbi Soloveitchik just said if you get stuck and you forgot to unscrew the bulb, so he said if you close your eyes and you open up the refrigerator door and you tap on to figure out which is the soup pot and which whatever you want and take it out, you make it into a psikresha lo nichalei. So if you really get stuck, so we would be making. But he didn't say l'chatchila at the gama to do psikresha lo nichalei. So over here, the guy is stuck. It's making noise. He can't sleep or whatever. So he really wants to kick it down to the basement. Said it shouldn't make noise. He should be able to sleep or be able to learn whatever upstairs. But by kicking into the basement, it's going to stop the reception, and the light is going to go off. That's a malacha de rabbanon. Kibui, where there is no pecham. The Gemara says only with the rabbanon. So Taisa says, even though they usually disagree with the Aruch on a psikresha la nichal on a malacha deraisa, on malacha de rabbanon, there's one Taisa that's prepared to be made. Chacham Avadia, when he would visit someplace and he had to give a shiur, he didn't know what to talk about. That would be his backup shiur. There's a steer in the Mishnah Berurah in 2 places. How much of a derabbanan do you have to have? Psikresha la nichala has to be a triple derabbanan or a double derabbanan. So we'd always talk about a person bought a new pair. He gave that shiur twice in YU, 5 years apart. He forgot that he gave the same shiur 5 years before. That's apparently a backup shiur. When he didn't know what to talk about, he gave that shiur. So a person bought a new pair of shoes and has a design on the bottom of the shoe when you walk in the sand, so it makes an imprint. So it's ksiva. So, but Ksav Shein Shal Kayama, so how long is it going to last? The sand is going to move another couple of hours. There won't be any ksiva over there. So it's Ksav Shein Shal Kayama, and then he said Kosev Beregel. Kosev Beregel in the Yerushalmi means he puts the pen in between his toes. So he felt Kosev Beregel even applies over here. When you walk with your foot, there's room to dingzach. If you put the pen in between your toes, that's ksiva kalachayad. If you make an imprint with the bottom of the shoe, is that called kalachayad? I don't know. That's the normal way to make. You push a design. I don't know if that's called kosev beregel. That's a he assumed. So he would discuss steer in the Mishnah Berurah. How many derabanans do you have to have that it should be mutter? You have to have 2 more derabanans in addition to psigration lanichla zayin tzlicha legufa. You have to have another 2 derabanans or 1 more derabanan. So that's a question.
The Mechaber Paskins, and we pass in Halacha that Ein Bishul Achar Bishul and Afiyah Achar Afiyah. The Mechaber also Paskins Ein Bishul Achar Afiyah and Ein Afiyah, but the Ramah is Machmir. The question is, if something was cooked in a microwave before Shabbos, what form of bishul is that, and would it be mutter to heat it up afterwards on a plata or something else?
That's a good question. We assume bishul is only bishul. There is only bishul be'esh. If it told us eish, you're cooking with heat. You're cooking with a frying pan that was heated on the stove, and I took the frying pan off the stove and I crack open an egg. The bishul that told us hachana. Here, there's no heat. Here you're cooking. The thing becomes burning hot, but you're not applying heat to it to make it get cooked. It's like bishul b'chama. The bishul b'chama is mutter min Torah. Bishul b'chama is even mutter min the Rabbanan. Only bishul that told us hachama is awesome. This is probably like bishul told us something. Probably they told us hachama. Probably awesome with the Rabbanan. I don't know. So what would be the din? But again, to bishul achar bishul, if it was first cooked in a microwave, I think the reason why we hold in bishul achar bishul is not because someone already did the malacha, even if there's no malacha. Bishul is only, like there's a din of bishul akum. You're not permitted, I think, when you first started, we were learning the laws of bishul akum. So bishul akum doesn't apply by something that's nechel k'moshu chai. Let's say in America we eat raw carrots. So if the nochri cooked the carrots and there's no prohibition of bishul akum, we don't feel so indebted to the nochri. You could have eaten the carrots without his intervention, without him cooking it. So it's not going to lead us into marrying his daughter. He's going to give me a steak, the whole prohibition of bishul akum, because it may lead to chasnas. So we don't feel so indebted if he could have eaten the carrots without him. On the steak, he couldn't eat it without it. Potatoes, he can't eat it without. So he had to do a bishul. So there's no concept of bishul on a food that's edible before. So many assume in the Rambam also mashma like that. When let's say he'll cook carrots on Shabbos. Cook carrots on Shabbos. Now, in Europe before the war, only behemoths ate raw carrots. The people didn't eat raw carrots. They ate their tzimmus. And Americans can't stand tzimmus. They cook carrots with the honey. It tastes awful. I'm an American. I don't enjoy it at all. So from the Rambam is mashma that din, that davar shenechel k'moshu chai, there's no din of bishul akum. Is not only a din in hilchos bishul akum because I don't feel indebted. From the Rambam is mashma that it applies to Shabbos also. If you cook carrots on Shabbos, when you cook, the Rambam writes that there are 3 different dinim of bishul. Bishul on food items, bishul on liquids, bishul on non-food items at all, bishul on tar, bishul on wooden pegs. So that's the 3rd category. There is bishul on non-food items, a different definition of bishul. Bishul by food means I took the raw food and I cooked it till it became edible. But if the food was edible before I cooked it, so you can't say I cooked the carrots till I made them edible. It was edible before also. So you can't really say. You can't say Kamachal Ben Dusai. You can't say Muvushal Kol Tzaka. It was Roy Lachila from before. The Rambam is mashma that din by Bishul Akum is not only because I won't feel indebted to the Nachri, because it's not called Bishul by definition, but over here, by the microwave you can take raw food and make it edible. Potatoes, yeah, you can make it edible.
My grandmother makes salmon in the microwave.
Oh, take mama's raw food. Yeah. And you cook it till it becomes edible. So I think that would also fall under the rule of a bishul achar bishul. Even if you say al pidin that there was no iser a bishul deraisa, even if there's no bishul even with the rabbanon. Let's say you cook something b'chama if it's possible. I cooked some raw food, b'chama, b'chol, and it's fully cooked. Then I take it on Shabbos and I reheat it. So Bisha B'chama is not called Bisha Livim Midrabban. Bisha B'chama is Mutter Livim Midrabban. But if it's the food is cooked, and then I recook it on Shabbos, that's a Shalav Hachzar. That's not a Shalav. Ain't Bisha Lachad Bisha.
Even though the Ramah is machmir for a fiach or bishul and
right, that's a different form. Fiach Bishul is a different form of Bishul. It's going to taste different.
so putting it on the pot is the same.
That's just bringing it warm again. I don't think that's not a problem.
What does the Rishiva hold the gabe muktzah that came into a person's hand be'isr? And Gaon Rav Ram says, in the Machlokas Magen Ram and Grav, you can continue carrying it. Would it depend on the type of muktzah? Would it depend on the lamaisa?
The Ramah has such a din that if a person, Taisus in the beginning of Beitzah shows from the Gemara. Let's say someone left a screwdriver on the table, and you want to eat over here, you want to learn over here, and the screwdriver's in the way. I can't put the Gemara hammer. I can't put the Gemara down. I can't put the plate down on the table. It's in the way. So the din is a klishim. It's not muktzah. A screwdriver hammer is not muktzah. That pencil is in the way. You're permitted to take it because it's so good from Safakami. You're permitted to handle a klishim malachtalis. So this is proves from the Gemara and Beitz in the first parak that not only are you allowed to take it off the table and then you have to drop it immediately. Once you have it in your hand, beheter, so you can walk 6 rooms away. It's all in your house. You can walk till where it belongs. The hammer belongs in that room, and the pencil belongs on the table over there. Once you carry the head, it's a tiltal orach, one long tiltal, and you're allowed to carry and put it in the right place. So the Ramah assumes that the same is true regarding muktzah. The fellow picked up the muktzah be'isa by mistake. He picked up the muktzah. So it's one big tiltal, so it doesn't make it a bigger avera if you carry it further. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes La Halacha, the Vilna Gaon, and the other Achronim from the Derech HaChaim Siddur, that's the Nesivos. They say we don't hold like that, Ramah. There's a difference between Klisha Malachta V'Isa and Muktza. Muktza, every moment that you're carrying it is an Isa. Take for example, there's another difference. The Gemara says David HaMelech died on Shabbos, and the dead body is Muktza because it's not one of the 4 categories. Or the Mekela Makom Mashkim. A dead body is a piece of junk. So a dead body is Muktza on Shabbos. He was Muto B'chama. So Shlomo HaMelech sent the Shara to the Chachamim. The body is going to disintegrate faster. It's going to be a bizayin ames. Is there anything that he can do to move the body out of the sun? Interesting that they already had the dinim of Muktza in the days of David HaMelech. Before David HaMelech died, they already had. They asked the Kasha. The Gemara says that B'nei Nechemi ben Chalkalya nishnas mishnazu. The dinim were introduced at the beginning of the Baisheni period. So how can the Gemara say here that already when David HaMelech was alive? That's a whole discussion. Whole discussion of that. So the Gemara says, what can you do if you have a meis muta b'chama? The Gemara says the Chacham told Shlomo HaMelech, kikaratina. If you put some food on the dead body, so you're carrying the dead body muktzah with the challah, a piece of challah. So it's a tiltal kafel. You're doing one tiltal on 2 things. One is muktzah, one is not. So you're allowed to move the muktzah. So the Gemara says that this heter le'amar kikaratina kala b'meis b'lvad. Only mishum kavar ha'meis. If there's any other kind of muktzah, but not mekel. So the question begs itself, where in the world did they come up, called the Tikar Abon Cancer, where in the world did they come up with such a wild idea of Kikar Etinek? Only by mace. And Shulchan Aruch it says that if it wouldn't be mace, if it would be a Klisha Malachta Le'issa, which is not Muktza, Klisha Malachta Le'issa, you would the Letalta Tzalkut Tzalkut, their Kikar Etinek is Mata. It's a Gemara like that. Their Kikar Etinek is Mata. You're allowed to move it. So why? Because there's one big tiltal. So since part of the tiltal is beheter, so a tiltal kafel, you're carrying 2 things at the same time. One of them is klisha malachta leheter, one is klisha malachta leisa. There's one big tiltal kafel of tiltal aruch. By klisha malachta leisa, I don't have to drop it when I take the hammer off the table. I don't have to drop it right away. It's one big tilt. I can take it to the room where it belongs. And if you have a tiltal kafel, I'm carrying a kalisha malachta lehet, and on top of the kalisha malachta leisa, I put a kikar, I put a piece of challah on the hammer. So even though it's not tzorch legufa tzorch mekomo, if you put a kikar if you put a kikar, you can't put a tinik on a hammer. Put a kikar put a challah, a candy on top of the hammer, then it's mutter. If it's a tiltal kofel, it's mutter. But by muktzah, we don't hold from either heter. We don't hold from the Gemara says, by other muktzah we wouldn't allow it. Why? Because causing the muktzah to move is the Issa. Even though it's one big tiltal, longer on one big tiltal, the heter with the Issa together, there is no heter. There is no heter there. So that's why Rav Schachter assumed the pashas like the Mishnah Brura, like the Bir Agron and the Sivas, the Chaim Siddur, that cooler, that once you're carrying it, it doesn't make it worse if you carry it to the other room. That's only by Klisha Malachta Lisa. That doesn't apply to Muktza Mamish. And then the Mishnah Brura has a further machlekes achreidim. What's the din of Muktza Machmas Chisaron Kis? You have a Klisha Malachta, you have a smartphone is a kli. It's not a piece of junk. It costs a lot of money, I guess. So if you have a Klisha Malachta Li'isr, it's a kli. So it really should be mutter tatal tzavur. But machmas chisaron, it's a precision instrument. You're makba not to use it for any other hishtamshus other than its ikar hishtamshus, which is iser. So you treat it like muktzah. Muktzah, we call it muktzah machmas chisaron. So the Mishnah Brura has a machlekes achreidim there in the Bir Halacha. Is it really muktzah, or is it's really klisha malach dalisa, but we pile on more chumras? That's a machlekes achreidim yaserav. So they thought, no, it's muktzah mamish. That's what it means. If you have a kli that's called malach dalisa, we pass like the Rabbeinu Tam, that's muktzah mamish. That's what he heard from his uncle Tefillin. If you hold like the Zohar, that you're not allowed to wear tefillin on Shabbos, and tefillin is then called malach dalisa. You don't use tefillin for any other hishtamshus. You don't use tefillin as a bookmarker to keep your place in the Gemara. You don't use tefillin to draw lines. You want to draw a straight line on the page, so you take a pair of tefillin and draw. You don't use it for anything. You only use the tefillin to wear the mitzvah. So he felt that we pass like the Rabbeinu Tam, that a klisha kol malach talis is muktzah mamish. They quote that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky also thought like that. So Moshe has truvas, he doesn't think like that. Moshe thinks that kol malach talis is only a klisha malach talis. Because the Ramon, the next line backs out. He says like the Rabbeinu Tam, kol malach talis is muktzah mamish. Then he says, but you're allowed to move it, let's all go for so. So he's saying that it's not muktzah mamish. He's saying it's only klisha malach talis. So he felt that his family tradition was that kol malach talis is muktzah mamish, and muktzah machmas chisaron kis is muktzah mamish because it's kol malach talis.
Regarding pets, the Ramosha in the eighth chilek of Ramosha. So there's over there he seems to say that pets are mutter, but it also seems to be that it's a quote from a different sefer from Tuli Shabbos, where over there he doesn't really mention the whole pets thing. Lamaisa, what's the Rosh Hashiva's opinion regarding pets, and in general, specifically regarding like this Igros Moshe, which seems to be very controversial, or other? There was just now, I think it was like in the news that someone found another tshuva from the Igros Moshe regarding Chalav Akub, that only if there's no Chalav Yisrael available, that's the only time when a person could be Saimech on the thing, but not.
I just heard that tonight by supper.
Yeah.
Just 2 hours ago. Over supper, they told me about this. I find that hard to believe. Because when Moshe was writing these tshuvas, his son, Rav Reuven Feinstein, was away in Cleveland. He was learning in Tel Yeshiva. But his son, Rav David Feinstein, was there with him the whole time. David Feinstein always eats the stam challah. When the mothers scream at their children in the country why they bought the tray for ice cream, the challah vacuum ice cream, throw it in the garbage. So they call it up down and says, don't throw it in the garbage, give it to them. He was there when his father wrote that. He doesn't always agree with his father. He won't disagree. He'll say, the Lashon Nikiya, my father never said. That's his Lashon Nikiya of saying he doesn't agree. But here he says his father said it. I don't know, I find that hard to believe about that.
Regarding the pets?
Regarding the pets, there's an Orzarua. Orzarua was one of the Rishonim, and then his son, Ben Chaim Orzarua, Chuvas Marach Orzarua, a little collection of Chuvas. He has a one paragraph Chuvah. He talks about pets explicitly, the exact same Shaila. And he says it was a machlokes in the days of the earlier Baliyah Taisa. The Orzarua was the rebbe of the Maram Rutenberg, who was the rebbe of the Rosh and Mordechai Nagos, Maimoni, at the end of the Baliyah Taisa. So the Marach Orzarua writes, in the days of the earlier Baliyah Taisa, a few generations earlier, there was a big machlokes. The overwhelming majority held that pets are also muktzah. There was a minority opinion, quotes a Baliyah Taisa by name, not familiar with the name, I never heard of, not the Rabbeinu Tam of the Reed, not one of the famous Baliyah Taisas. is usually assumed not the way it says in the Igros Moshe. How reliable is it? The problem is that those tshuvas, even if they're authentic, Moshe was an old man, he wasn't 100% well at the time. Like I'm connected with the OU in the Kashrus division. So when Moshe was in the last years of his life, sometimes Rabbi Genak would contact Rabbi David Feinstein and ask him, he wanted to ask a Shalom Rabbi Moshe. He would say, do me a favor, ask someone else. My father is sometimes in, sometimes out. He's not 100%. He wasn't well in the last year of his life. So this is one of the later chuvas, very short. The early chuvas, he would write a few pages to explain what the psak was based on. And the last couple of years of his life, when he wasn't well, he would just write it briefly. He thinks his mother thinks it's also like that chuva that I said about the paintings hanging on the wall. He doesn't see why it should be muktzah. So Magen Avraham and the Pashim Shatir Gemara is like that. A thing that you never handle has no ishtamshus at all. It's muktzah mamish. The Gemara seems to be like that. I wouldn't rely on that chuva. We assume Balechaim are muktzah not because they have no ishtamshus. Balechaim muktzah because the Chacham made gzeira. Also the ishtamish but Balechaim. They made a separate gzeira. Also that's why it's muktzah.
And regarding petting them, there's a bir halacha that says that you can move the hair of the horse. You can wipe your hands on the horse, on the tail of the horse, because that's moving the hair isn't considered moving the Baal Chai. Is that something we can rely on?
That's a problematic bir halacha. You know who has an essay, believe it or not? Professor Shaul Lieberman Zochar Levracha wrote a commentary on Tosefta. He wrote Tosefta Kivshuta. He was at the Jewish Elijah Samer, was a big Talmid Chacham. So that's a problem with the Tosefta. He talks about the horse's tail. So he explains the whole thing as a misunderstanding. The horse is not alive. They made a kli out of the horse's tail. Not that the tail is still attached to the horse. He always proves it from Greek sources, Greek and Latin sources, all these things. So he says it's obvious that that's the pshat. They made a kli out of the horse's tail. Not that you're handling the horse's tail while it's on. The Gemara says that a mace is muktzah, a dead body is muktzah. So not only are you not allowed to muktzah, you're not allowed to move muktzah like this, move the muktzah, just to close the eyes of the mace. The minhag is you don't bury a person with the eyes open. You close the eyes. You're not allowed to close the eyes when the person died. You're going to leave them like that till after Motzei Shabbat. You won't be able to close the eyes because it's sets in that they're kind of frozen the way it is, yeah. But that's a din in the Mishnah. So the Ran says, you see from that din, that the Isa Tilta Muktza doesn't only apply if you move the whole Muktza from one location to the other. Everything stays in the same location. You just move a tiny Minei Bay within it. That's also Tilta Muktza. There's some who misunderstood that Taisus. When Taisus said that, how are you allowed to open up the door if the candle is on the back of the door? The Gemara just is worried about extinguishing the flame. Why is the Gemara worried about the door should be a basal davar? Shouldn't be allowed to move the door at all. So Taisus says that it's mutter. So some misunderstood Taisus. They said that's not tilta mukta. Tilta mukta is like this. But if I have mukta like this and I open the door and I close the door, since it's not moving from one location to the other, so that's not tilta mukta. So that's wrong. That's not what Taisus meant. It's clearly not. The Ran proves it from that Mishnah. Taisus can't argue with the Mishnah. You see that it's a lower level of tilta mukta. And the Gemara says therefore there's a little bit room to be makel when you're not moving the muktzah from one location to the other. It's a lower level. It's not as chomer as tilta mamish, but it's also awesome. It's also tilta muktzah. That's not correct.
A few questions in Hashkafa before we finish. There's elections here in 2 weeks. Is there a chiyuv to vote for? Is there a chiyuv to vote? And is there a chiyuv to vote for a religious party?
They say the story that the Satmar...
And what's considered a religious party?
Which religion, yeah. Which religion. They say that the previous Satmar Rebbe, Rav Yoel Teitelbaum, used to come to Eretz Yisrael before an election to try to discourage everyone. You're not allowed to participate in the elections because you're not allowed to have a government, whatever the shita was. So they say the story goes that he once came to the Ger Rebbe and he saw the big signs all over. It's a mitzvah to vote Gimel, Dalet, whatever it was, to vote for Yahudah, whatever the letter was. So he came and he asked him, it's a mitzvah to vote? Mitzvah like eating matzah, really? It's a mitzvah. He said, not exactly like eating matzah, like eating more. Not all the mitzvahs are like matanos. Not all mitzvahs are like Sudas Purim, Klap and Haman. There's some mitzvahs that we have a lot of fun. Other mitzvahs that we're not so happy. Of course, you have to participate in an election. A person has a chayvus ishtadlus. There's a mitzvah to do ishtadlus. One of the 613 mitzvahs in the listing of the Rishonim is a mitzvah to go to war. What a mitzvah to go to war. You can't just sit back and say Tehillim and pray to the Rebbe Shalom. You have to do ishtadlus. You have to prepare yourself for Mocham. So there's a din of ishtadlus. A single person. He'll sit and wait for the girl to fly in the window in the year. A person has to make up on us. He'll sit. The money should fly in from America. Money should fly in. You have to do a hishtadlus. That's one of the mitzvahs in the Torah. So here, you want to have a religion, you want to have a good government in Eretz Yisrael, you have to vote for the right person. If the wrong person gets into office, so it's going to be our own fault because we don't participate in the elections. Is there a mitzvah to vote for the religious party? I don't know. If it's a corrupt religious party, if such a thing exists, I don't know. Not familiar. So if the religious party is corrupt and the secular party is going to do more for Yiddishkeit than the religious party is going to do, then it's a mitzvah to vote for the secular party. You have to figure out. Unfortunately, they quote Rab Chaim Kanievsky Gezot. There's such a thing as Das Torah. Das Torah means not only can you pass Shalos and Hilchos Treifus, Hilchos Muktza, Hilchos Bishul, you can pass Shalos and political things also. But by Midvar Ma'urim, if you have a shayla on a chicken, what's a treif? You have to look at the chicken. You have a shayla on Hilchas Nida, if it's a maratom, you have to look at it. You have a shayla in politics, the person has to understand politics. If the person is sitting, has his nose in the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch all day long, he doesn't read the newspaper, doesn't know what's going on. So what do you mean? We don't believe in a religious oracle. By the Abdi Avodah Zarah, they would have an oracle, and the oracle would give an answer. It didn't make any sense. There is no such thing. By us, if you have Chaim Oizer was a genius. He was a genius in saying Yeshiva Torah. He could talk. All the Bachrim and the Yeshivas came to talk to him and learn. Rav Schachter was in university in Berlin, and his parents were already in America, so he couldn't talk and learning with his father. So he used to travel to Vilna to talk and learning with Rav Chaim Oizer. All the Bachrim used to talk and learn with Rav Chaim Oizer. And Rav Chaim Oizer was a genius in Psak Halacha. He gave modern Psak. His tshuvas are the foundation of many psakim that we're passing today, way years later. And he was a genius in politics also, because he knew what was going on, he knew the facts, and he would interpret the facts, and he would interpret history. He knew what was going on, and why this person said this, and why this person said that. He would analyze everything, and therefore he would give you a psak what to do. But if a person is not following the news, what they read, remember in America, the European Rabbanim used to read the Yiddish newspaper, which had last week's news from last week's New York Times mistranslated. So they were passing based on their faulty knowledge of what's going on. It's like Halachic sonnets. Rabbi Soloveitchik used to read the New York Times twice a day. There used to be 2 editions. I don't read it even once a day. I read the Kitzur of the Times Digest. They give you a 3-pager. They give you the Kitzur all the news. Rabbi Soloveitchik used to read the Times twice a day to see. He would analyze he would analyze the Israeli news also. And I remember Rav Goldvich, the former Rosh Yeshiva from Kerem Yavne, he used to visit America all the time. He used to, whenever Rav Soloveitchik was there, he would visit with him. He said it was uncanny. He said Rav Soloveitchik hadn't been in Eretz Yisrael since it was only once in Eretz Yisrael, 1935. He would analyze the news, why this Chaver Knesset said this, and why he said that, and what's behind it, and therefore you should do this. He said, how does he know what's going on in Eretz Yisrael? He read in the papers. He used to say, Father taught me how to read in between the lines. Moshe Soloveitchik we used to make the students read the Yiddish newspaper. Moshe Soloveitchik didn't know English. He made them read the Yiddish newspaper, and he would ask them to analyze, why did so-and-so say? Why did he say this? Why did he take that position? What is he thinking? What's going to be the next step? That's how. But you have a person who's sitting and learning all day long. He's not looking at the Shaila. That's ridiculous. That's not Das Torah. That's like by the Avodah Zarah, the Alaskan oracle. It's ridiculous. We have to develop B'nai Torah Talmidei Chachamim who know how to learn Yirei Shamayim, who understand politics. They should be able to know what's going on in politics and come to a real maskana. Come to present the Shaila to the Rabbanim, but they have to understand the Shaila. If you don't appreciate the Shaila, so you're not entitled to give an opinion. That's not Das Torah. It's not based on an analysis of the information. Tam Chacham Paskin Shaila in Shulchan Aruch has to know what the facts are. He has to know, not only know what the dinim are, he has to know what the facts are. If you want to paskin in a shaila in politics, you also have to know what the facts are. You have to know what every candidate stands for. And what's going to be next? They say, I remember after Rav Soloveitchik passed away, so they printed in all Israeli newspaper, they printed special magazines, special issues, writing about Rav Soloveitchik. So I remember one paragraph stands out in my mind. Rav Soloveitchik said, I'm nowhere near my father. My father could analyze a situation, a political situation, and he would be able to predict correctly, if you go this path, what's going to be another 60 years ago, that path, what's going to be another 60 years. He said, I don't have that ability at all. He paused for a moment and he says, but I think at least I have a mila over my contemporaries. At least I can see what's under my nose. Others don't even see what's under the nose. Mamash, they're blind. I remember once I had a course in graduate school in Jewish history. So the professor said something that was very anti-traditional. So I said, in the class, I said, you mean to say, I said the next step. So I had Rabbi Kanatopsky was sitting next to me in the class. Rabbi Kanatopsky was Talmid Chacham. So he said, what are you putting words in his mouth? He didn't say that. So the professor says, what do you mean I mean to say? I said it. He did say it. He didn't say it like that. I said, that leads to the next step. So Kanatopsky said, what are you putting words in? I didn't say that. He didn't even see what's under his nose. That's very unfortunate. It's not right that they ask Chaim Kanievsky shailas like this. It's very unfair. And he really shouldn't, he should decline, he shouldn't answer. But they get him at a point, a moment of weakness, and he gives an answer, and then they print it in the newspapers. Chaim Kanievsky is on. It's a bullshit to him that he takes a stand. I think that he's not familiar at all. They ask him about baseball. You know what baseball is? They ask him, what is it? They tell him half a story. Oh, therefore, whatever. How can you give it psak? You don't know what baseball is. You don't know what the whole thing is all about. Very unfair.
Someone who sees someone else who's being Michal Shabbos, just from not b'mezid, just from lack of yediyah. He's making tea straight from the urn. Pours it right onto the yuri from the urn. At what point should he stop him, not stop him? Should he say something, not say something? Is there like a clear gather?
If you think there's a chance that he may listen, so you should try to explain to him that he shouldn't do it. But if you're vadai that he's not going to listen, then the Gemara says, "Kishem shemitzvah lo b'davar nishma, kach mitzvah shelo lama, lo b'shein nishma." You know he's not going to listen. That's only on one-to-one. Let's say a rabbi in a kehillah. He has 100 people in the shul, so maybe 90 people will not listen to it. There's a chance that 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people, someone will listen. He does have to give mussar. He should say over the din. The rabbi should never say din because there's one person in the audience who will not listen, who will violate the din. So Moshe Feinstein writes, is a double pasha like that. That's assumed. If there's one person that may listen, then you should say to the whole group that this is not permissible. You have to explain it in a reasonable way. But if it's one-on-one, so then we say if it's a borrow, if it's very clear the guy will certainly not listen to you, then you're not allowed to give the tochah. Shouldn't give him the tochah. So they should explain that in the Lashon HaGemara. Gemara says, Kishem shemitzvah lo medavar nishma, kach mitzvah shelo lo medavar. What am I kishem? It's not the same thing. Like the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Kishem shemevachim ala tov v'kach mevachim ala ra. Just like if something wonderful happens, you say a bracha, Shechionu atov v'ameitiv. So too, if a tragedy occurs, you say a bracha, baruch dainam. So the Gemara asks, Kishem, kach. It's not the same bracha. How do you say Kishem shemevachim kach mevachim? It's a totally different bracha. It has to have something in common. The Gemara says, Kishem shemevachim ala tov v'kach mevachim ala ra. The nusach habracha has to correspond to your perception. You perceive this as a tragedy, so you have to say dainamis. But they do have one thing in common. Shem shemavachim ala tova, when a good, wonderful thing happens, you hear good news. You say the bracha b'simcha. So too, when you say dainamis, your perception is that it's l'ruah. So the nusach habracha should be dainamis, but you're supposed to say b'simcha. It's difficult. You're supposed to say b'simcha because you're supposed to have a munah that kol ma'david rachmana l'tavavid. But still, the nusach, since the perception is that it's a tragedy, so you have to say a different nusach. But the Gemara is medai kishem. Kach has to have something in common. So what's over here? What's in common? Kishem shemitzvah lo medavar nishma kach. That's the mitzvah of tochacha. Kach mitzvah shalom adavar neshma. Sometimes there's no mitzvah of tochacha. Why is it kishem? So Rav Schachter thought perhaps the pshat was like this: kishem shemitzvah shalom adavar hanishma. The fellow now is doing an aver. So I have a mitzvah to convert the bal avera into a tzaddik. Now he's a shtikal Russia. He's doing an avera. He's doing b'shoigeg. So I have a mitzvah to convert him to a tzaddik. You should not do the avera. Kach mitzvah dama l'loy madavar shalom madavar she'eino nishma. If right now he's doing the avera b'shoigeg, he doesn't know that it's awesome. Then the Gemara says mutav sheisha, and you know for sure he's not going to listen. So mutav sheisha gigam v'loy mezidin. Why? Because if I know that even if I give him tochacha, he's not going to change his ways, so I'll be converting a tzaddik into a rasha. Right now he's doing the aver b'shogeg. And I know if I give him tochacha, no chance in the world he's going to listen. So I'll be causing him to become a rasha. He'll continue to do the aver b'mezid now. So that's why it says kishem. Just like there's a mitzvah to convert a rasha into a tzaddik, so too there's a mitzvah not to convert a tzaddik into a rasha. We're dealing with the same consideration. You should try to improve people's situation, not to cause it to get worse. That was his suggestion. So if it's on one-to-one, then we say, if you know they're not going to listen, then you don't give tochach. But if there's a chance that he will listen, you have to say nicely and pleasantly. If you talk down to people, and you give musa talking down to them, so for sure they're not going to listen. You have to give, it's hard to give tochacha. Rav Tarfon lived in the days of the Taran. Tarfon lived in Zman HaBayis. And after the Bayis, he says, Ein lo about there as a mishia de lo hachiach. The Gemara in Erchem says, we live in a generation, people don't know how to give tochacha. You have to give tochacha in a pleasant way, a friendly way. That you mean l'toivasai. The Gemara quotes a pasuk in Mishlei, al tochach letz be'ival toch, something like that. Don't give tochacha to a rasha because he's not going to listen. Achiach l'chacham b'yeh haveka. Give tochacha to a chacham and he will love you. So I tell over this story quite a few years ago. There's nobody here from my generation, the yeshiva. Quite a few years ago, I was single, and the Baltikei, we always had a Baltikei Professor Furstenberg. He was a mathematician. I think he moved there to Israel. I haven't been in touch. He's probably still alive. He was a little older than me. So the Furstenberg used to blow. He was a wonderful Baltikei. So one year, one of the rabbis insisted, one of the rabbis in he's going to blow shofar. He blew shofar the first day of Rosh Hashanah. Was a disaster. Nobody was there to say anything. So after he went home, they didn't want it. He was a very sensitive person. After he went home, so Label Dulitz was a rebbe in yeshiva years ago, for years, and he used to blow shofar on Soloveitchik Minyan. He came in after davening to wish everybody good Yontiv. So they told Rabbi Dulitz, we need kiyuv. No problem. Took the shofar, blew everything, and you need 18 trumitin. Tashrat say Rabbi Soloveitchik said 18 seconds. He blew 18 seconds. He did like I said. Blew everything was wonderful. No shine. So the morning of the second day of Rosh Hashanah, I was there early. So when the Baltikei came in, so I said to him, I walked over to him, I said, I hope you're not going to blow shofar today. He says, why not? So I said, because yesterday they didn't want to hurt your feelings, but nobody was Yotzei. And after you left, Label Dulitz came, they asked him to blow over everything, and everybody was Yotzei that. So he said, no, he's going to blow shofar, there's nothing wrong. I said, I'm warning you in advance, you got to blow shofar, I'll embarrass you in public. Don't you dare blow shofar. Nobody was Yotzei yesterday. So he said, so who's going to blow shofar? No one was prepared. So I said, we'll have a contest after Kriyas HaTorah. We'll have auditions. And I said, Furstenberg is here. The guy who blew shofar the last 10 years. He'll blow shofar this year also. He was very angry at me. I would also be angry. He was very angry at me, but he knew I really meant it. So he gave in. So he was very hurt. But then he was a chacham. I wasn't. He was older than me. He already had the children, older children. I didn't have. I was single at that time. But then he became my best friend. So when he married off one of his children, he was very close to Rav Soloveitchik. So when he married off one of his children, Rav Soloveitchik was supposed to come to be Mizadi Kedushin. He couldn't come. He asked me to be Mizadi Kedushin at his daughter's wedding. That's the pasuk in Mishnah. If you give tochacha to a chacham and he realizes that you mean l'toivasai, you don't mean lahachis, you mean l'toivasai, then he'll become your best friend. He became my best friend. And I remember we used to go to the bungalow colony together. He used to be the gabbai in the bungalow colony. So Parshas Vayeschanan, there were a couple of rabbis from YU. He insisted on giving me Aseres Adibros. And once he had to go away for Shabbos, Parshas Vaschan. He left instructions to make sure that they give me Aseres Hadirit, and they called up before Shabbos to make sure that they give me Aseres Hadirit, because he became my best friend. After I gave him Tochacha, and he understood I meant it, you have to give Tochacha when you see a person who's doing wrong. You have to try to give Tochacha in a friendly fashion and explain it. You mean L'Toivasa? Then you stand a chance of having them listen.
Last question, and we're asking this just to learn as much as we can from the Yeshiva and with a lot of restlessness, but it says, what's the best advice that Yeshiva ever got in his life? And if he didn't get any good advice, what advice would the Yeshiva would have wished that someone would have told him when he was starting off in learning and in anything?
Hard to remember. I had a very easy life. My parents were religious. My father was an Orthodox rabbi all the years. My father was always sitting and learning. I was so disappointed the first time around 2 or 3 years before my bar mitzvah, I think. Rav Schachter used to always give a shiur on his father's yahrzeit, Gimel Shvat, every year. It was like the event of the year. People would fly in from out of town to hear the yahrzeit drush. People would drive in from Lakewood and from all over, and they would fly in from out of town. So when they would meet each other in the street, Freilich and yahrzeit. Freilich and yahrzeit. No, it's once a year. Everybody, like Aliyah L'Regel, everybody would see each other once a year on the yahrzeit. So the first time my father took me to the yahrzeit, I think I was 11 years old. So he prepared me in advance, but the Ma'am comes out. I always thought my father was the biggest Talmid Chacham in the world, because he was always sitting and learning in the house. And he taught me also a lot. So then I realized Rav Schachter was bigger than my father. So it was such a disappointment for me. I thought my father was the biggest Talmid Chacham. But then my father was thrilled that I fell in love with Rav Schachter shiurim. And then when I went to TA. I went to Yeshiva University High School. But my whole family, everybody went to Yeshiva University. My father went to the college there, and he got smicha from Oishel Zalvech, and my uncles, they all had a shaykhus with Yeshiva University. So when I was in high school, I was very fortunate. I had wonderful rabbeim, and when I was in third year high school, the rebbe recommended they should put me in fourth year high school, Rabbi Soloveitchik Shir. That was wonderful. That was marvelous for me. I think in the early years, Rabbi Soloveitchik, when he first started Shir, he was way in the clouds, way above them, and I don't think he explained it well enough that the students should understand. So you have, let's say, Dr. Lamb is a very brilliant person. And Jake Rabinowitz passed away. He was a good friend of him. Sal Ruach Larach Yamim Tovim. Also from that Chevra, they're very brilliant people. They can't say over any Shir Halacha there, Rav Soloveitchik. They'll say over the drushes. But they didn't get the Halacha, because he didn't explain himself. He was talking, the brisker Ivra was so hard. By the time I came to the Shir, we understood, a lot of guys understood everything in the Shir. I was only in the last year of high school. I was fortunate. I think I got the 10 best years of Rabbi Soloveitchik's life. When my 10 years were up, that's already his health was already weaker. Yeshurim started to become weaker. And before my time, I don't think he explained himself too well. So the students didn't understand. So I had a very easy life. I never had a fight with my parents about learning, about Shana Bet. There was no Shana Bet. There was no Shana. The whole system wasn't. There wasn't Medina. There wasn't Medina. It was after 1948. It was before this whole system was introduced. I didn't have to argue with my parents about religious observance, about learning. I had a very easy life. People gave me good eitzes, although everybody gave me good eitzes. I don't know. What would I have liked that they should tip me off about? Everything went easy for me. Not in my schools. Just I was surrounded with very nice, friendly people that always gave me good advice on everything. I don't know. Got to think about that. What's the best advice that someone gave me, and what would I have wanted? I don't know. I'm very impressed. Every time I meet a group of people learning this program, this is Gewaldic, Rabbi Goldvich, you deserve tremendous credit. We live in a generation, you have to come up with a gimmick to get people to learn. Gewaldic? This is an authentic gimmick. You're learning Gemara with Shulchan Aruch. That's supposed to be. The highest level of learning is Lasukish Maitz Aliba de Hilchuseh. In the European yeshivas, they used to make fun of a person who was learning the Halacha. When you would learn Shulchan Aruch, learn the Halacha, they say, why you want to go into the rabbinate, look down upon you. That's the lowest level of learning. The Gemara considers it the highest level of learning. You learn Asukah Shmaitza, you learn the Dinim of the Gemara, and you see what's the Maskana. That's the highest level of learning. Yashikach to all of you. You should continue for many years to come. You should have an influence on your children, even if they sleep. Also, they'll be influenced. They see you. All the parents come to learn. It's the way it's supposed to be. Not right.
Yes, sure.
If you hold on to this, maybe take it out. Thank you.
Sorry if I wasn't able to ask all the questions.